Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including She-Ra, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm April Collins, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
Sam Quattro.
Hello.
And Sarah Dolman.
Hi.
Today, myself, Michelle, Sam, and Sarah, wow, that's a mouthful, we'll be discussing the entire first season of She-Ra. Don't worry, if you haven't seen the show yet, we're going to have a non-spoiler section, and then we'll be getting into all of the dirty details, though it's not dirty at all. But, before that, you can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. Please also subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes or on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. So, before I get your guys' initial thoughts, just to kind of give myself perspective, and then, of course, all of our listeners, who has seen the old show? Have any of you seen the old show?
No.
Nope.
Cool. So
Before our time.
I've watched the old show, but it's been so long that I couldn't tell you anything about it. So that's awesome. I'm that kind of makes me feel better because we're all kind of getting this super fresh perspective on the series. So I love it. That's great. So Michelle, tell me your initial non-spoiler thoughts about the show or the entire season as a whole.
I was very pleasantly surprised, and I say that being very hype ever since the first images and promo material for the show was released earlier this year. It was such a nice breath of fresh air. It makes me feel kind of the way Steven does, in just that there are so many female characters, none of them feel like they have to represent all of womanhood because they all have very differing personalities and a lot of them have different powers, and that's just really nice. You can just kind of pick and choose I identify with this person, that person's hilarious. I love how they take on certain situations. I kept feeling I was feeling a lot of this excitement that I was where have I felt this before? And I think the best way to kind of encapsulate this is kind of how I felt the first time I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. All the adventuring, all the very strong character stuff, and the bonding and the relationships being so pivotal to the series. I think all those were really good ideas. And especially considering this is a show aimed at kids, this must be so fun for them. And that makes me really, really happy. So very, very strong for this first season. And I'm so, I can't imagine it's not going to get a second season. I'm just so excited for whatever's going to happen. Because I feel like this season was really laying the foundation for a lot of things. So, who knows what they're going to do next. But it's going to be cool.
Yo, I definitely agree. Sam, what were your initial non-spoiler thoughts for the entire season?
I was also pleasantly surprised. I wasn't following the beginning news all that heavily. I was oh yeah, She-Ra, it's coming. I'll get to it when it comes out. I don't need to hype so much on it. And then I watched it the first day, and I was pretty blown away in terms of the characters. I think, to elaborate a little bit more on what Michelle was saying, I think the show was a really good character show. Storyline kind of formulaic, which isn't an issue at all. It is what it is. But where it really shines is the characters. You have so many different kinds of people, and they're funny, they're sad, they're mean, they're angry, they're joyful, they're playful. They're all really well rounded, and I think that is the heart of the show, just getting to know Adora and getting to know Catra and Glimmer and Bo and just seeing what their lives are like. It's amazing. I love it.
Awesome. Love it. Sarah, your initial non-spoiler thoughts?
Yeah, really a lot of my thoughts echo what Sam and Michelle just said. I really, really, really loved this season. It's definitely, I would say, one of my favorites of the shows that have premiered this year. really, like you said before, like, you get such a strong sense of who these characters are. They're all just so incredibly lovable, even in their flaws, and there's such compelling relationships between the characters. And like, what I think is so strong about it is that it really allows the characters to be vulnerable and to face their insecurities. 'Cause like, I find that like a lot of times, like, you don't really get that depth of complexity from characters, especially like in a first season when you're just getting to know them. And I think that this show was really successful in that. But also, it was just so much fun to watch. Also gave me so many feelings. So yeah, if you're looking for like a show that has really great characters, this is definitely one I would recommend.
Awesome. Yeah, no, you guys sort of mostly nailed my initial thoughts on this series. Pleasantly surprised, that's like the biggest thing that I put down, and I just think it's great that like both Michelle and Sam said the exact same thing. Michelle, you talked about it being kind of like Steven Universe, and it's funny because like I totally got that same sense. All of the characters just really stood out to me. I think that as a reboot, it was very successful in the fact that a lot of reboots sort of, they either pander too much to the original audience or they don't pander like at all. And I think this show found a really nice balance between the two of them. I didn't feel lost, which I liked. I do agree. Like, well, especially like with reboots, sometimes you can just feel so lost in like all of the old references that you're like, what even, like, I don't know what this show is. And so, I think that the show did a really good job at balancing that. There was a lot of elements, that they kept from the original series, but then sort of like gave them their own spin. The producer, Noelle Stevenson, I think she just did an incredible job at taking that and, turning it into a kid's show. But yeah, those are just my overall initial thoughts. So at this point, we're going to be getting into all of the spoilers. So if you haven't seen the entire first season of the show, spoilers ahead, just stop, go watch it, come back, we'll be here. The pause button works great, I promise. If you need help, just message me. But anyway, so after that, is there anything that you wanted to add to your initial thoughts now that we're in the spoilers section? Any specific details that you want to talk about? We'll start with you, Sarah. Anything in particular as an overall first impression? You can give things away now. Go for it.
I don't know. Like, there wasn't a lot that I had to say, like, generally that was, like, specific to spoilers, but, like, there's so many, like, themes that I really loved in the season. Like, so much about self-confidence and dealing with failure and self-blame and feeling ashamed. And, like, the show isn't afraid to, like, get into those like difficult things with the characters, and that meant a lot to me, and I just really enjoyed it.
Agreed. Michelle, anything you'd like to add to your initial thoughts?
Everyone has been saying this since the show dropped, but it's very gay. It's very nice to see that so normalized, and just, I'm sure we're gonna get into the Princess Prom episode at some point.
Oh, for sure.
But just seeing them dance was so awesome. And it, like, made my heart do things. I was like, oh, I haven't felt this way about something in a while. This is so exciting. And I love when shows can do that. Also, just, like, I love Bo. He and Scorpia, interestingly enough, I think they're, like, the most devoted to friendship anyone else in the show, and I love that that's, like, you get it on both sides. Bo is, like, championing the good guys and Scorpia the bad guys, but they're both, like, so into friendship. And Bo is just such a sweetie. Like, I love him as the Sokka of the group, but without being really sarcastic, just being completely genuine, and it's so good. Like, I love him, so I'm so glad he exists, and that's all.
Love it. Yeah, no, I guess we can already tell who your favorite character is, even though we haven't gotten into that yet. we'll talk.
Scorpia and Glimmer. Glimmer was she surprised me. She was really remarkable.
Yes. Oh, no, I agree. Sam, anything else you'd like to add to your initial thoughts for the entirety of the season?
I think we'll get into it as we speak. I can't recall anything specific at this point in time.
Yeah. So, something for me, because if you know me, I love magical girl shows, obviously. I think we all do. So I kind of want to talk about the show, kind of how it functions as like a magical girl show. We obviously have transformation sequences, and for me at least, like, that's always something that takes away from a show for me. Did anyone feel that, like, the transformation sequences took away from the show? Did they add it? Were they appropriately used? Michelle, we'll start with you.
I'm curious, wait, when you say they take away for you, is it because, like, you get sick of seeing the same animation over and over? Oh, okay, that's fair. I'd say for this one, this is the first time I've seen a girl transformation that didn't feel gazy at all. In a straight dude way. Like, it feels epic. Like, the music feels epic. Like, when she brings her sword down, like, it just feels so cool. And, like, the word empowering is a buzzword that is thrown around a lot. But it's very exciting, and you focus on how strong she is and how cool she is, and not that she's like a girly girl or anything. And I just love that. And again, it's like the first time I've seen that, especially with something that clearly draws from, you know, Sailor Moon and other magical girl things. I love that she feels so cool and just so powerful. It's really, really nice.
No.
So I liked it. I thought it was fun.
That's good. Sam, any way you feel about those transformation sequences?
Honestly, I barely noticed them. I know, like, people keep, like, bringing them up, but they barely registered to me. Not to say that they were bad. It was just like, oh, she's just transforming into She-Ra. It is what it is. It's part of the show. Just another, like, 15-ish seconds out of my life, I guess. They were fine. I don't think they subtracted from anything. You know, it's all part of the lore for the honor of Grayskull, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Sarah, how were these transformation sequences for you? Especially, because I know that you watch Ladybug, and if anyone who watches Ladybug is familiar with it, like, half of the show is transformation sequences. So,
are
Sarah.
Yeah, no, I really didn't mind the transformation sequences. Like, I thought, you know, if they weren't in every single episode, and even when they were included, like, there was one time where we kept on being, like, interrupted by Bo just, like, freaking out about it. It was so great. And also, I just get overwhelmed every time She-Ra's hair just, like, expands outward across the screen. It's just so
She
beautiful.
just has so much hair.
Where does it all come from?
Like, a nice transition sequence, too.
I enjoy it.
That's good. Yeah, no, I definitely, because the biggest thing, I guess, with magical girl shows is again, the transformation sequences. And I liked that none of them felt inappropriate. I think there was only, like, one, and I was just like, are we doing a transformation sequence right now? But again, I'm kind of one of those people who, like, tires out on them super quick. But it's kind of nice because I think there's, like, a 5-episode stretch where we don't even see it. It just kind of happens. And I love that. But the biggest thing, I guess, that I really want to talk about in terms of, like, this being, like, a magical girl show is the fact that we have the friend group, they called themselves the best friend group, if I remember, or best friend squad, as named by Bo. How did you feel?
Bo trademark.
Bo trademark. How did you feel about the sort of dynamic that went into Adora, Glimmer, and Bo as the best friend squad? Sam, we'll start with you.
I thought it was nice. Friendship is always really important, and not a lot of shows for kiddies do, but not a lot of shows that I personally watch emphasize on that. It's all about, oh my god, everybody has to be in love with each other, and there always has to be sexual tension. And that isn't really the case with these three, and it's so refreshing to have that, to be like, oh yeah, these are just like a couple of buds hanging out and nobody's in love with each other. It's wonderful.
I like that.
I second that. Yay.
Yay!
Yay, platonic love. Need more of that.
Yeah, I loved it. Sarah, how did you feel about the Best Friends Squad? Would you join it?
Like, if only they would invite me into their Best Friends Squad, I would love. I love these three characters so much. Their dynamic is so wonderful. Like, Glimmer and Bo are just, like, the most aggressively supportive friends. It's just so funny.
Aggressively supportive.
And yeah, no, I love it.
That's good. Yeah, no, I thought that having that sort of core group was really good. I liked that it was sort of I'm going to use the word limited, but I don't mean it in a bad way, that it was just the three of them. For instance, like Sailor Moon, there's 5 of them, and that's just like, it almost feels like too many characters at a certain point. And I think it's in my opinion, better to just have, just Adora and Glimmer and Bo, and we sort of focus on them throughout the majority of the episodes as they go on to their crazy adventures. But would any of you say that Bo, because I know one of the things is that with this show there's very few male characters. Would you say that it took anything away having Bo as a male character and then also being in the Best Friend Squad?
No.
It added.
Yeah. I thought it was good. Honestly, like, the gender stuff didn't really come to the forefront of my mind. I maybe noticed, oh yeah, the only dudes on the show are really Bo and Seahawk, and that's about it for, like, the good squad. And the bad squad kind of has a little bit more variety in terms of guys, gals, etc. But I don't think it takes away from anything.
Do you think that and I guess we're kind of moving into, talking about more of like the like female and feminist and queer representation in the show. Do you think that it, because a lot of the male characters that we did sort of explore the most, Bo and Seahawk predominantly, they were a little bit more feminine in their, I guess their character designs, whatever. Did you like that? Is that something that you would want to see more of in shows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
yes,
hell
please.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I kind of meant by when I was saying Bo's characterization adds to the show, because it's not just saying, oh, if you're a girl, you can be any kind of person you want. It's also saying, boys, you also don't have this limit to this idea of what it means to be masculine or to be a boy. You can be all these different kinds of boys, and that's okay. And I feel like it gives space for a lot of different kinds of ways of feeling about your gender in general across the board. It definitely has more emphasis on girls, but there's a place for boys in that too. That's potentially just as subversive. And I think that's really important because, like, you should support all sides. There are all sides to this. So I think it would have been a mistake to not have any boys at all. Because, yeah, it's important for them too. So Bo's just really great. And, like, he's plenty masculine. Like, he is so good with a bow and arrow. Have you seen his body? Like, he has nothing. Like, he is perfectly fine. He just also happens to be very sweet and love friendship and wear a midriff kind of outfit.
All the time.
And yeah,
even his tuxedo.
I know, I like that he takes the, like, sash thing off. He's like, much better. My chest can breathe
gets
now.
cold.
Yeah, then he gets cold later and he goes back for it to the coat room.
Yeah, true.
No, I think that was one of the things, I guess, that I really enjoyed about Bo. Even as, like, part of one of the main characters or in that core group, is that, it might sound terrible to say, but I never figured out what his sexuality was, and I loved that. Like, I kind of liked being, like, on the fence about it, and not that I really wanted to define it. I'm kind of glad that the show never really did, and I got really worried in the Princess Prom episode when, like, Glimmer... like got upset, and I was like, why are you upset? And then they were just like, I want you to be friends with other people, but I don't want you to not be friends with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, my heart, like, and I think that it was kind of like, I don't know, almost like brave or unique to kind of take that different turn, because I was very, very worried that it was going to be one of those things where, like, at some point Glimmer's like, but I really like Bo, like that, and I would have been, like, I probably would have...
Why am I so upset? Is it because I love him and I never knew? Like, we've seen that before, and it reinforces that idea that you can't, if you're attracted to the opposite sex and they're your friend, that you can't not fall in love with them, and that's so not true. But we see it all the time, and yeah, that's why, yeah.
Like, I have a confession to make. I was half paying attention, like, at the very beginning, and I saw Bo, like, sneak into Glimmer's room, and I was like, oh, are they dating? And I just kind of went on that assumption for the next couple episodes. Okay. Anyway, keep going.
That's fair. But no, like, I mean, that, it seems very, like, stereotypical to kind of fall back onto, like, this is a guy and this is a girl and they're in love and blah, 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 blah. But also, like, props to the show for having so many just, like, casually dropping, like, open, like, queer relationships throughout the show. Like, I loved it. My favorite one was, like, Spinnerella and Natasha at the end.
Yes.
They're like, oh, sweetie, like, could you...
Yeah. You cast nets very well, something like that. It's great.
That was good. Even, like, they had, like, it was just, like, so, like, nonchalant, like, yeah, like, Scorpia, I'll go to the prom with you. Like, I loved, like, that whole, like, thing with Catra and Scorpia, and poor Scorpia, like, she loves Catra so much.
She really, it's so funny, because again, like, Scorpia to me feels like she reminds me a bit of Jasper, but her personality is like the opposite, because she's so nice and so into being friends with people and so happy-go-lucky, but she's a bad guy at the same time. It's just wonderful. I love her character so much.
Scorpia's my favorite.
Yeah, and like, she's this very huge, very butch woman, but she's so sweet, even though she's like technically evil. It's just, there's so many layers here. It's not stereotypical at all. They so easily could have made her like this evil butch villain, and they didn't. And that she's so enjoyable. And that's also wonderful. I'm very happy about that decision.
I love, my favorite part about Scorpia, especially in the prom episode, is that she, like you said, she's very, like, sort of butch, you know, and she's, like, a strong character, but then, like, she shows up in, like, this tiny, like, slinky dress, and I was
oh god.
I know.
The dress montage was great. She kept putting on, like, more and more frilly dresses, but then she walks out in that black thing, and it's like, whoa. She's gonna break some hearts with that prom.
She broke my heart, because she ended up being evil.
Fair.
And continuing on, I guess, the prom episode, because I think that's, like, the biggest episode is in terms of, like, all of, like, the, like, openness and everything, because they just featured so many, like, same-sex couples. But also, can we talk about the Adora and Catra, like, dance scene? Because that was, like, them fighting, but, like, set to music and on the floor. Like, I guess, I really kind of want to talk about the whole Adora and Catra, I guess, like, what is their relationship? Sarah, how did you feel about,
good luck, Sarah!
Oh,
you
God.
figured out!
Wait, what was the question?
What's their relationship?
What is their relationship?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like I'm not the right person to ask this.
There are no wrong answers.
No.
Yeah, there's no wrong answers. And, like, just, like, how did you feel about their dynamic for the entirety of the series?
Okay. So, like, I guess at the beginning, I was like, okay, like, they have such a great dynamic, and I was like, okay, yes, like, this is, like, the ship, and I'm gonna root for them, and I sympathized a lot with Catra for feeling so upset about Adora leaving her, and it's been shown so well even through all of, like, the strife, that they go through over the season, that they care about each other, like, really deeply, and they've been affected so strongly, but also so differently from the, like, really harsh, terrible circumstances that they grew up in. But, like, and definitely there is a possibility for romance that I could see there, but personally, I have a hard time shipping them because there is so much hurt and broken trust between them at this point. Like, there's so much resentment from Quattro's side, and, like, Adora doesn't really get where Quattro's coming from, and, like, it's, you know, I think that, like, definitely the show could work to overcome that. It can make, like, a really compelling story. It's not something that I personally was, like, invested in a romantic way, even though I cared a lot about their relationship, like, especially that episode, The Promise. Like, that was such an amazing episode, and it showed such great backstory to understanding their relationship and how Quattro feels about how Adora was treated versus how she was treated. Anyway, I have a lot of complicated feelings about them. But anyway, that kind of like sums up generally where I'm at.
Sam, how are you on the Adora-Quattro dynamic that we see throughout the entirety of the season?
So I am feeling it. You know, there is a lot happening on that front. But I do agree with Sarah. They're kind of not at the point where it would be obviously healthy, considering they're on opposing sides, and there's a lot of trust issues happening and a lot of resentment. And it's not the right time. It's really throwing us for the long game here in terms of that ship, if it will ever happen. But, you know, like, it's cute, you know, Quattro sleeping in Adora's bed in the first episode, and, like, The Promise one. I can get behind it. You know, I've reblogged some fan art. It's alright. Yeah, yeah, I've reblogged some fan art. You go on my Tumblr right now.
It's a lot of fan art.
I have some fan art of that. I'm pretty sure most of it is just Scorpia, though, because I love her.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
I think, you know, Adora and Quattro, it's fine. We'll see where we're going next, because there's not, like, too much happening romance-wise. In terms of, like, the first season, not really too much space for it. And the impression that I'm getting is that, you know, everybody's just really brokenhearted right now, and there's no time to be kissing and making up when you're fighting, so.
For sure. Michelle, Adora-Quattro, how you feel about that relationship?
I feel really bad for shipping him after what Sarah said, because that made so much sense. That's definitely a healthy way to look at this. They're so not in a place objectively to get together, but I hope maybe like 5 seasons down the line.
5 seasons, all right. Yeah, Michelle's calling it.
Figure out. They're developing. It's hard. Like, I can't imagine knowing somebody most of my life and then falling in love with. Like, that must take some time. Let's be real. You know them so long, it's hard to know sometimes what you're feeling. But I do think, like, and I agree with Sarah that The Promise is probably one of the, like, best, if not the strongest episodes in the season. And that's because you've been getting kind of this understanding of She-Ra and Quattro's dynamic the entire show, especially in terms of it's Shadow Weaver, yes. And especially in terms of her, because she did always treat She-Ra special, as she did always kind of look down on Quattro and think of her as a nuisance who wasn't really worth her time or wasn't capable of anything. And it's not like, you know, She-Ra and her were both thrown into this situation where they were brainwashed, but She-Ra definitely kind of, for the most part, went along with this differential treatment and kind of just hoped Quattro would, you know, stay her friend and they get through it together, even though there was a clear, like, it was not an equal playing field for either of them. And I mean, I think that's one of the hugest issues in terms of them really becoming friends again. Like, if Quattro didn't have reason to turn against She-Ra and, Adora, against Adora. Like, if there wasn't already, like, deep rooting resentment there, Adora making the decision to leave, wouldn't have been enough to break them apart to begin with. So there's clearly, like, a lot of damage controlling to be done. And I don't think Adora honestly quite understands the extent of Catra's hurt. And,
exactly.
What she represented to her growing up. Like, and for Quattro, I mean, she honestly has had to work twice as hard to get half as far up until Adora left. And Quattro's doing objectively really, really well in terms of her placement in the group by the end of the season. And she had to work probably harder than Adora ever did to get there. So, like, I feel for her. I feel for her so much. And her struggle is very empathetic. And yeah, it sucks to feel like you're not the special one. It sucks to feel like you're worthless. It sucks to see your best friend always doing better and resenting them for that, but despite still loving them and having them be so close to you. Like, in a way, maybe that can make it worse. And I love that their relationship is so built up, and I love that we get so much background for Quattro and Adora. And I feel like I really hope Quattro comes far, but like it 100% makes sense that she is where she is right now, and I love that the story took the time to really get into that because it makes her so much more of a compelling character. I like kind of care about Quattro more than Adora just because I know Adora's gonna be fine. She's got her bow.
She's She-Ra. She's got this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep my eyes peeled for what happens to Quattro, and I won't ship them yet, but the dance was very exciting, and they definitely have a lot of feelings and things that they need to work out.
It's okay if you ship them, Michelle.
I want to feel morally okay with my choice.
You want to feel okay about shipping them. No, I won't lie. Like, at the beginning of the season, I totally shipped them too. I was just like, yes, give me Adora and Quattro. Like, I need all of this. And, like, I just, like, soaked in, like, all of those moments that they had with each other. Even, like, the little banter, like, you know, Quattro just, like, trying to bring Adora home. And even, like, with Adora, like, struggling, you know, with the idea and kind of being resistant to that. No, I totally shipped them at the beginning, and after The Promise, I was like, oh no, this ship is sunk, like it's not going anywhere. Specifically because their relationship, like, it's so, like, you don't know what they are. Like, they're best friends, but they kind of, like, treat each other like sisters. But then, like, you're kind of confused because you think, like, maybe they're in love because there's, like, small little lines like, well, I'll admit I miss you when you admit you like me. And it's like, what am I supposed to take from that? And so, like, yeah, like, what are you trying to tell me about this relationship that I'm clearly not picking up on? Because it really is, like, they're, like, flirtatious, but then you're in your head, you're like, maybe they're just teasing each other like sisters do. It's so, like, crazy. And then I think, in The Promise, they sort of, like, really, like, lay down the foundation of what their relationship was, what it's always kind of been, and then, where it's at. And I think it, like, super drives home for me because, like, at the end of the episode, like, Quattro is literally cutting her ties to Adora whenever she's, like, hanging off the cliff, and like, her whole, like, I wrote down the entirety of the quote because I just, like, I loved it so much, where she says, "Hey, Adora, it all makes sense now. You were always the one holding me back. You wanted me to think I needed you. You wanted me to feel weak. Every hero needs a sidekick. The thing is, I've spent all this time hoping you'd come back to the Horde. Well, and really, you leaving was the best thing to ever happen to me. I'm so much stronger than anyone ever thought. I wonder what I would have been if I had gotten rid of you sooner. Bye, Adora. I really am going to miss you." Like, wow.
Yeah, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. It really did.
Yeah, it, like, there's another, like, scene, like, at the end of episode, I think it's 7, like, that I had that moment, but, like, man, that, like, punched me in the face because like, they kind of, like, hint at that's how, like, maybe Quattro never really admitted it to herself, but, like, she was always Adora's sidekick because Adora was so, like, put up on this pedestal that even, like, we, like, don't know where the pedestal came from. Like, it just was there. That's what Shadow Weaver did to them. And, like, even, like, in the scenes where, like, Shadow Weaver's, like, constantly berating Catra, like, you know, like, the only reason why I keep you around is because Adora likes you. Like, Catra's existence has been so defined by Adora, and, like, Yes! Like, her existence within the Horde and the Fright Zone was just, like, it circled around Adora. Like, her life like revolved around her, and it's kind of like, I don't know, like her like cutting those ties. I'm like good for you, Catra, for realizing that, you know, maybe it's hard to call it an abusive relationship because Adora wasn't necessarily doing it. It's like the abuse was coming from a third party, but it was because of Adora. So, like, props to Catra for getting out of, like, what was essentially, like, an abusive relationship, at least in her eyes. And I think it was them being locked inside of the ruins or whatever, that, like, and they're sort of, like, glitching through, like, all of their past experiences together that took her to realize that. Like, I realize I just went on, like, a super huge rant about this, but
Good.
but, like, it like, me, like, it spoke so much to me personally, just because, like, I've been in an abusive relationship before, so, like, I know how that feels, and, like, how, like, whenever you come to that realization, like, it's just so, like, it's, like, wonderful, and you feel so empowered. And that, again, like, kind of puts you, like, plays into, like, the entirety of the show, because a lot of the time, like, there's very much, like, this theme of, like, empowering all of those people who don't belong. And it's like, okay, like, Adora, like, got her power by getting out of the Horde, and, like, Catra got her power because Adora left. Like, it's just, it was, like, crazy for me, so... But, like, and, like, that episode, like, The Promise was the strongest episode of the entire season for me. I don't know if any of you guys felt that way, but it definitely was for me. Yeah, sorry for my huge entire rant, but it's just, like, so, like, everyone, especially, like, going into the show, I kind of got the feeling that, like, everyone was just like, oh yeah, like, the show is so gay, like, there's all, like, this queer representation, and Adora and Catra seem to be, like, the front line of that, but then whenever you get into the show, that's not what that is. I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Yeah, it's
not
really complicated.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, outside of my rant, yeah, is there anything else you guys want to sort of add to the whole Catra Adora thing before we kind of move on into more fun topics, I guess?
Well, I mean, if anyone else has anything to say about Catra and Adora, they can go before me. But I have something to say about the ship that won over my heart in this show.
What is the ship that won your heart, Sarah?
Okay, I feel like this should have gone in an earlier section, but I love Glimmer and Adora. Their friendship is just, like, I mean, like, just the friendship alone is just so wonderful. They care about each other so freaking much. They would do anything for each other. Like when Glimmer escapes the capture and saves Adora from Shadow Weaver, I was like, oh my gosh, you're saving her. It's amazing. And, like, Adora is, like, so determined to help Glimmer when she's glitching, and so I just think, like, I love them because, and this is kind of, like, it kind of foils Catra Adora to me a little bit, in that, like, it would be a relationship that's built on this basis of love and trust and honesty and understanding each other and being vulnerable too. Like, they're open, not afraid to be themselves with each other. Like, from the very beginning, we have Glimmer opening up about how she was wrong and they did need Adora, and I thought that scene, it was in, like, an episode 2, and then as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, look at their connection, it's so amazing. Plus, like, there's just so many great moments, like, when Glimmer is taking care of Adora when she's, like, totally out of sorts in episode 6. And also in, I think, episode 7, when they're, like, snuggled up together in the hot springs. I was like, oh my god, it's so cute. I died.
Yeah.
Anyway, Glimmer and Adora has, like, I ship them a lot.
No, I think that's, like, their relationship is so, like, positive, and I think that's great, because when you forget that at the beginning of the season, they didn't like each other. Specifically because, like, I don't want to use the, like, well, Adora was totally brainwashed, but, like, Glimmer had, like, a better idea of what was going on in the world. So, but, like, considering, like, they were at opposite ends, and then, like, for them to kind of come together, like, I hate when, like, relationships, like, friendships are very forced in shows, but I don't feel that was the case with these two. It seemed very natural, like, they're both very loving characters. They're very positive characters. They build each other up. They build up the people around them. Glimmer, has her thing with her mom, and that's different, but, like, between the two of them, and then they're building up Bo and all of that. But no, I think that's, like, if I had to jump on a ship, I'd jump on that one with you, Sarah. You can be the captain.
Yay.
We can sing sea shanties.
You can steer the ship.
I promise not to set it on fire.
Are you sure? Like, does anyone else have anything they want to say before we move into, I guess, lighter topics? I just want to reiterate, like, the show did such a great job with, like, relationships and, like, all of its representation. I think the feminism in the show is great. And one thing I did want to bring up is that I loved that He-Man wasn't in the show, which was something that, like, after the fact, I read, like, a lot of people were upset about that.
Why? It's a He-Man show! It's not the He-Man show!
Yeah, who cares about He-Man?
Thank you.
He's doing his own thing.
Exactly. Like, this is why we have our She-Ra best friend group here. But no, like, and even, like, the producer herself, she is just like, yeah, in this version of, like, she literally quoted, she's like, in this version of things, we don't touch on him. Like, She-Ra's her own hero, and we'll set that up first. And I was like, yes, I love this. Moving on. So, we already know Michelle's favorite character was Bo.
It's a three-way tie between Bo, Glimmer, and Scorpia.
Three-way tie. Perfect.
Three-way tie.
Which one of them would you say best describes you?
Glimmer! And that's why Glimmer's objectively, like, the... Because, like, can we just talk about Glimmer for a second? She's feisty, she's hot-headed, she hasn't gotten control of her powers, she's constantly battling her mom being concerned about her safety, which, like, when you're a teenager, I guess is pretty relatable, right? Yeah, but she's still, like, leading an army, she's still in charge of this whole kingdom, and that she's been able to take on so much in 13 episodes. It's really impressive. And at the same time, she's a very solid friend. She checks in with Adora very consistently. Whenever Adora's feeling really down, she and Bo are always, like, there to boost her back up and give her the confidence she needs to move forward. She's such a team player, but she's such a standout, and her design is so cute. And she's just such a cute character, but she's, like, got that fiery spirit at the same time. She's so down to earth and so likable, and I just love her. She's definitely a standout this season.
Agreed.
Bo's great too.
I agree 100%.
Love Glimmer. And I know who Glimmer was. I knew She-Ra was a thing, and I'd seen, like, some really wacky old animation from the show. It really confused me. But, like, somebody had, like, this weird monkey butterfly.
Yes.
I don't know. It was, I didn't know what to make of that. But Glimmer, I knew nothing about her, and then she came and just, like, she, like, stole the show so many times. She's just there's just so much life in her, and she feels like such a real, complicated, quirky person without it feeling tropey, and that's hard to do, and I feel like a lot of the characters balance that well.
Sam, favorite character? Or least
Scorpia.
favorite character? Scorpia.
Scorpia is my fave.
Why is she?
I'm so in love with her. She's just, we touched on it earlier, she's just big and fun, and she's evil, but, like, she's good. She's not on the right side here, but hopefully she'll eventually get there. She's just really pure-hearted, and everything that I strive to be. Everything I strive to be in a person, except for the part where I affiliate myself with evil faction. But it's not her fault. Her family did it. It's not. She didn't directly do that. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, she very casually mentions that, like, the Horde just, like, jacked her whole kingdom, so they gave over their precious stone. She's like, yeah, now it belongs to them. It's all cool. It's like, no, they kind of invaded you and took over.
She's so innocent. Like, I think that's one of the things that, like, makes her, like, truly great. Like, she's not naive, but she's very innocent, and I love it. It's like, and I get, like, why her family did whatever it did, because, like, it was probably in their best interest. Like, look at her. She's, like, commanding armies and, like, invading, and yeah, maybe, like, that's not the most ideal situation, but at least you're not dead. So.
She does it well, yeah.
Yeah, she does it well, and she got to meet Quattro. Like, I'm so happy for her. She loves.
Now that's the ship. Quattro and Scorpia.
That's a good ship.
Quattro needs to look over and see what she had all along.
Exactly. Like, when they went to the princess prom, I was like, wow.
They made a good couple.
They did. They looked very cute together. My favorite was whenever Scorpia is with Entrapta, and she's, like, talking about Quattro, and Entrapta's like, you've already told me this already, and she, like, plays it back on the tape recorder.
That's so true.
Like, I love how excited she is about their friendship. Like, it warms my heart so much. Sarah, favorite character, or least favorite character?
Well, my favorite character is also Glimmer. Back and, like, really agreed with everything that Michelle said, but I also want to share what my thoughts were because I just love her so much. I just thought she was such a dynamic character. Like, she stood out right away. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I love. Like, she's so emotionally expressive. She's kind of dramatic at times. She's assertive in just an incredibly endearing way, and she has such a big heart. Like, she loves her friends so much. And I think, I really like the sort of the struggles that like, there's so many struggles that she goes through that resonate a lot, like dealing with failure and wanting to be taken seriously. Like, she really wants her mom to see her as capable, and she wants to prove herself. And then, when she fails, she gets glitched, and she learns how to deal with that failure, and she ends up having such, like, a wonderful heart-to-heart with her mom. And yeah, no, I really love Glimmer. And yeah, I feel like she is me also as a person.
Yeah.
Ooh. No, I think Glimmer's the most relatable character because
like relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's like, she's like that sort of rebellious teen, and we all kind of like she's rebellious, but she's still, like, super happy and, like, loving, and I think, Glimmer.
Glimmer.
Yeah, Glimmer. No, like, it's funny because I put her down as one of my favorite characters, too, so I'm like...
God, everybody just loves Glimmer. I thought she was fine. I wouldn't call her my least favorite, but she's nice.
That's good. Who is your least favorite, Sam?
Probably Seahawk. Seahawk or
That's
Entrapta.
fair.
Entrapta.
No! Oh, I love Entrapta, though. I love her voice and how, like, she's too deep into science, like, half the time and doesn't pay attention to anything else, and her hands.
I don't really like that archetype of character. It's not really my thing. Just like the OP science nerd who can do everything. Where's the struggle in that, really?
There is no struggle.
I wasn't too much a fan of Shadow Weaver either, but she's like... She's a Shadow Weaver. She weaves shadows.
Yeah.
She does. She does her best.
She did what she could, and that's all that we could have asked for. No, I think that Entrapta was my least favorite character too. I'm so sorry. Yeah, she just
Michelle is just shook.
Why do you not like Entrapta?
So I didn't like her because it really bothered me that they used her as a tool to, like, set up the climax of the season. And it was like, she's so smart, but yet she's so naive. And, like, I don't like that sort of trope of a character. One that's just like, I'm so into science that I can't even see what I'm doing, even though, I didn't enjoy that. I think that, like, I wish we would have developed some of the other princesses just a little bit more, because I was like, okay, yeah, like, I get it, like, technology is powerful and all of this stuff, but, like, did you see Perfuma take people out with plants? Because I thought that was kind of interesting. Or, like, the fact that, like, Frosta, like, all we got from her was that she was 11, and
Frosta's very cool, it's true.
Yeah, I wish we would have gotten more out of Frosta, and so I felt that, we explored her. We explored Entrapta without really exploring her, if that makes any kind of sense. Like, she was given so much screen time just to, like, end up being, like, she's not even, like, evil. She's, like, super neutral. Like, she's literally just doing it for science.
She's like a contractor.
Yeah. She's the contractor.
Just blinded by science all the time, every day.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That type of character just doesn't, like, appeal to me. Like, I thought that the other, Mermista was very, like,
snarky.
meh. Yeah, like, she was very meh for me, and, like, my least favorite part was that, so the voice actress for her, she's in, the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes!
And so, like, I can appreciate whenever, like, I don't necessarily recognize your voice, even though I know who you are. And so, my least favorite part was whenever I was, like, watching the final episode, and she comes on the screen, and my husband was watching the episodes with me, and he goes, huh, that sounds like so-and-so from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. And I was like, oh, why did you have to say that? Like, I was mad at him, but then I was, like, mad.
I had the same exact feeling.
Yeah, because I was just like, it's like, you didn't do anything extra. You literally just went in there and read some lines and then walked away.
Like, it really just sounds like her character from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah.
And, like, I was like,
man.
oh. Like,
Yeah.
I wondered,
I'm
like,
gonna think of that.
when, like, her episode came, I was like, I wonder why this person sounds just like Heather from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I looked it up, I was like, oh, it is her! Which, I'm a fan of. I love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It's airing tonight as we speak.
I'm
gonna watch it a little bit later when it goes up on the CW.com. But yeah, I'm always a fan of seeing voice actors that I know from other unexpected places and being like, oh, I stan you. You're nice.
Okay, so we talked about any other characters you want to talk about while we're talking about them? I think we all agreed we don't like Seahawk. He's not really good at that.
He's not that bad.
He's not that bad.
He has Mermista to bring him down a peg or two when he gets kind of too extra about adventures and ships and stuff.
I will say I was very mad when in the last episode they set a boat on fire and threw it at the, I was like, we had to do that, didn't we? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. He was kind of endearing to, like, I didn't want to like him. At the beginning of his episode, I was like, he's so annoying. I'm so glad that everybody's just dragging him through the mud. And then, like, he started talking about how, like, he started, like, bonding with Glimmer, and I don't know. I was like, you know what? You won me over a little bit, Seahawk. I hate to admit it. But you did.
I think I would have liked him more if he had bonded with Bo.
Oh, and he did bond with Bo. Like, they, like, sang a song together at the end.
They did!
It was
They
great.
sang a song. They sang a Jaunty song.
They sang, I am Seahawk, I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so favorite characters, least favorite, favorite episode of the season? Sam?
Hold on. Go to somebody else.
Michelle, what was your favorite episode?
Sarah.
I mean, it was really hard for me to pick a favorite episode because I just really enjoyed pretty much all of them. Like The Promise is so strong, and what was the Princess Prom? But okay, the one that I wanted to highlight, just because I feel like it is probably underrated, but I just loved it, was episode 7, In the Shadows of Mysticor. I just thought it was such a fun episode. Like what I said before, with Glimmer and Bo being aggressively trying to help Adora just relax, and I just find that hilarious. And that Adora just does not know how to relax at all. It was so good. And she doesn't know what an ant is. I love that. But it was also really powerful. It was one of the first ones where I was like, wow, that was really great. Because there was the whole thing about Shadow Weaver kind of, and those voices following her around, and they kind of forced Adora to face some of her biggest insecurities. Glimmer coming to her room and being like, oh, I can't believe you did this, and you should just leave. And how that kind of ties into her, insecurities about, not being, good enough. She's failed at helping them out. And then also, there was, I think it was Lord Hordak's voice going around the room, telling, she's failing as a leader in the rebellion. And I thought it was a really great moment for Adora, which I don't think we've really talked about her very much. But I thought that was a really great, episode for Adora, and that she stands up for herself at the end, fights Shadow Weaver. So it's this is who I am. You can't tell me that I'm not good enough because I'm gonna do what I want. And yeah, I liked it.
No,
it's a very compelling case for that episode.
Yeah. It's tied for second or third for me. But Michelle, what's your favorite episode before I go into another huge rant?
I'll just say The Promise, even though we've already gone into it so much. It's contextualized Adora and Quattro's relationship growing up so much, and laid bare kind of where they stand now, what they'll need to overcome in the future to have Emily's semblance of, peace with each other. And it was just very satisfying and eye-opening at the same time. And it makes me appreciate Quattro even more, even though she was great from the beginning. Now I just have a lot more empathy for her struggle.
Sam, favorite episode?
Sorry about earlier. I also have to say The Promise. I'm a really big fan of the sorts of episodes that trap two characters together and they have to just figure stuff out. I don't know, I'm really into that whole character development and really looking into the psyche of different characters, and that's why I liked it. I like smaller episodes like that.
Yeah, The Promise is definitely, it's the best episode of the season for me. I'm not going to talk about that one. I like that one because that's the Catra episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And and at the end of it, I really was I understand you're evil now, Catra, but I'm really rooting for you. I want you.
Proud of you.
But then and I already talked about, her sort of severing the ties of an abusive relationship. But so for episode 7, which is another one of my favorites, that's kind of Adora's episode, in my opinion, because, we have, we're really kind of getting to see her, they're not, trying to recruit people, she's dealing with, I guess, a social situation, she doesn't know how to relax, because she's never relaxed, she did, as evident earlier in the season, when she doesn't even know what a party is, so sad, R.I.P., but then, we kind of have, it's her past is kind of haunting her and following her around, even in this place where that's supposed to be, relaxing, it's supposed to be neutral ground sort of territory. But then, she cuts the ties with Shadow Weaver, who was essentially her, mom figure, and, she just has, a really great line where she's you're bitter, and cruel, and you used me, you've hurt my friends, and now you'll pay. Her just standing up for herself. Again, it kind of, goes along with Catra's, character development, too, because, even though this is early in their season, but, she's, it's someone that she trusted all her life, and then she has to, and not even that, but, like, it doesn't seem necessarily that Shadow Weaver, even though she put her up on a pedestal, she didn't, like, take her seriously almost. I don't know, like, the best way to describe that, but, like, the one thing that is, like, is Shadow Weaver tells her, like, you are nothing without me, you are weak, and she's like, no, I'm not, like, I'm She-Ra, like, I've got all this power. and then, you know, just, like, her just standing up for herself, like, oh my goodness, I love that so much, because again, someone who's been there, like, it's so easy to fall back into the old ways and to just believe, like, terrible things about yourself, that you're weak and, like, you'll never survive without me. And then for her to just be like, no, like, this is me. You're bitter. You're cruel. You suck. And I'm going to take you down. Like, I loved that. That's, like, again, one of my favorite episodes of the season. Any episodes that you could have really, really done without? Sarah?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I thought every episode had its good points.
That's good. Michelle, any episode you could have done without?
Well, okay. Like, I was thinking about this when I was watching, and even though I wish there were more than 13 episodes, just because I'm really enjoying this show, there was no episode that felt like they were killing time, or that you took it out and nothing substantial would have happened to further the main story along. And I really, really appreciate that, because you do get this sense that there is actual progression happening and it's building towards an actual concrete thing. So yeah, there wasn't an episode there that I felt like, oh man, like, here's another one recruiting a princess. Cause, like, I liked all the princesses. I liked getting to meet them in their different locations and seeing their personalities come out. Like, that was a really enjoyable part of the season, getting to know all of them. So yeah, I agree with Sarah. I don't think there was anything that felt like, oh man, gotta slug through these 22 minutes. Like, it was time.
Sam, any episodes you could have done without?
Honestly, again, nothing is really coming to mind. I think it's the sort of way that you binge things, and everything just blurs together so much that I can't really think too much about, like, what the different episodes even were half of the time, unless I specifically went through and saw the summaries. I would say that, you know, the first the two-parter stuff, even though it was, like, our setup, it could have been a little bit better. And, like, the horse one could have been a little bit better, but, you know, they were all good. I mean, we are really in the stride of the 13-episode animation season, and, you know, a lot of things are just getting really streamlined to fit that episode order, and to make things, you know, the most story the better in that allotted episode amount, and I think She-Ra does it best.
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate, apparently. Because it's funny that you guys mentioned all of, like, the recruitment episodes, because I thought those were all of, like, the weakest episodes, in my opinion. Simply because, like, they were super formulaic, and, like, each one, like, I kind of, like, they blurred together, and I don't think it was because, like, I was binging it, because, I think it was simply because they were all sort of the same. It's like, we're introducing you to, like, this princess, and here's her home, and this is kind of how they live their lives, and they all have that very, like, we can fend for ourselves, and then something bad happens, and then they're like, oh no, we need the help of others, we will join you, and then, like, that's the episode, and I sort of, like, grew very bored of it, and I think that's another reason why, like, I really enjoyed episode 7, because we didn't do that, and I was like, look at this is different, like, and again, like, you know, coming out of shows like Ladybug, that's like, again, if you've never seen Ladybug, like, the first season, every episode is exactly the same. Spoilers.
Yeah.
So,
That's why it's really hard for me to watch.
Yeah, and so it's really hard, like, if you, like, have ever experienced that, then you can kind of understand, and it's hard for you to watch, then that's how, like, those episodes were hard for me to watch. And again, it was very, like, it seemed like very glossed over. I kind of wish that we kind of would have gotten to, like, I loved all of the princesses. I just wish we could have gotten to know them all more. And that kind of goes into my rant with Entrapta, because, like, that's my least favorite of the princesses. And she got more screen time out of anyone besides Glimmer and Adora. And I was like, oh my god, like, I was just so tired of it. And then her episode was the last one, and I was like, when it was over, I was like, thank goodness this is done, because, like, I can't do it this. Like, I was like, okay, we've gotten through, like, we checkmarked the princesses off. Perfect. Like, we've done this. Like, now we could move on. But, I mean, I understand laying out the foundation that way. Just because they were weak doesn't mean I didn't necessarily enjoy them. And I think it really helped, like, sort of lay out the foundation of the story, like, where everyone was kind of coming from, and then why we wanted or needed them to join us later on in the season, especially when everyone comes together in the end. Like, even though you saw that coming from a mile away, I still thought it was very powerful. But yeah, so any other episodes that you don't want to talk about? Sam, Michelle, Sarah, any one of you? I'll take it.
Okay, so let's see. I think Entrapta's recruitment episode was definitely the weakest of that bunch of recruitment episodes. Probably to do with my general on
That's
Entrapta.
fair.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it was just, it went straight into it. It didn't really follow the formula that we were just complaining.
Yeah, at first, I will say I thought that her chefs were like prisoners in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was framed so creepy. Like, they leave the room and they were so unnerved by the robots. I'm like, oh, did someone take over and force you to bake cupcakes all the time?
Tiny cupcakes.
Tiny cupcakes. That's right.
Yeah, so I thought it was gonna be like a villain or something to like break the mold, but no, it's just Entrapta and gotta take the rope.
Just trapped a deep sigh from Sam.
And I like go on Tumblr while listening to it and don't really pay attention.
Yeah, that was like the one I actually had to watch that episode over because I was so disinterested in it. And then which is also like terrible because I feel like it has like, it's supposed to have a really, really good message because you kind of get that sense that they're like, what is it? Like, Bo says something at the end. He's like, the rebellion needs regular people too. And like, they're all like, the Kitchen Knights, the Bakery Brigade, or the Pastry Patrol, I think were all of the names he came up for, like, the three, like, chefs. And I was like, wow, that's like a really good message. This episode was terrible.
Both things can be true.
I just felt so bad for the episode in that regard because I was like, this one has a really great message. Like, you don't have to be like, because that's something that like we kind of like talk about and explore with Bo is because he's not a princess. He doesn't have magic powers. And he's just like, I don't know what role I play in the rebellion other than like hanging out with you guys. And then like he has an episode and it's the weakest one. And it drove me crazy. I felt so bad for him. Bo, you deserve better. Like, I hope you get your like just desserts, in the second season.
Miniature just desserts.
Miniature just desserts. Is there anything else that any one of you guys wanted to talk about before I ask you what your hopes and dreams are for the second season? Because it has been given the green light, it just hasn't quote unquote.
When?
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of days ago. It was given the green light, but it hasn't been ordered. So they've already like told them to start. I know, right? I'm like,
okay.
So they've already told them that they can start production. But Netflix hasn't necessarily said like, yes, we want those episodes. So, but I think given like this first like season, I can't imagine that they're not like it's not going to be like official. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
maybe you're thinking how many episodes they might give them for season 2, and if that's a different number than season 1, maybe.
I think I honestly I was surprised by the 13. I thought it was going to be 10, and then and then someone corrected me, and they were like, "No, April, it's 13," and I'm like, "Are you sure? Like 13 episodes? That's such a like strange number." Because normally like Netflix, if a season is super long, like if it has 26 or 25 episodes, then they'll dump them in like 13 like 13 episode chunks or like 12 episode chunks. And so I was like, but this is the entire first season, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and normally if it's like an entire season, it's usually like 10. So I was like, 13 is so strange. Like, but yeah, so, Sam, hopes, dreams for the second season.
Hopes and dreams for the second season. Well, obviously, Quattro is gonna, like, mess everything up and try to take over the world again. Blah, blah, blah.
She's so eager.
She's
so
second
hungry
in
for
command
power.
now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the gang will find out that Entrapped is alive. Hopefully
yeah.
Scorpia will, like, you know, keep being herself. Maybe Scorpia will deflect and go...
Quattro needs her, though!
I know, but, like...
Maybe
Unconditional love.
that's how we get Quattro to the good side.
I hope so, yeah.
I mean, obviously, Quattro and Scorpia are... Okay, here's my thing. They, plus Entrapped, are probably gonna go over to the good side at some point in the future. Don't know whether or not it'll be next season or not, but then, what's her face? The other girl who was, like, training with them, she's gonna take over.
Oh.
Ooh. And not Lucas?
Not
yeah.
Lucas.
Or wait, not Lucas.
Not the lizard
Kyle,
and
Kyle.
not Kyle. The
Not
girl.
Kyle. Sorry, Kyle.
But she's gonna take over and be, whatever the guy's name's, like, right hand, and then she'll try to take over the world, and it'll be up to everybody to stop them, and it'll be a nice, you know, Avatar scenario where, you know, everything is banding together to stop the forces of evil. And yeah, that's my hopes, dreams, predictions for the show. I don't really have any thoughts romance-wise. How old are these characters, by the way? I don't know.
So they're supposed to be like 17, 18. Because
Okay.
I looked it up and found it in an interview that Noelle Stevenson did. It was somewhere out there on the internet because I was very curious, especially because I do remember that in the original the series they were like mid-20s.
Yeah, they
So-
look like 30.
That explains that, because their bodies were all, like, super developed and stuff.
But yeah, and it was a really interesting article to kind of read because she said that she did that on purpose and she got a little bit of backlash for it because they wanted her to keep super close to the original, and she's like, yeah, but you want this to be for like young girls. And I think that's going to be the best, like, age range, especially because, like, at 17, and because a lot of the characters are kind of going through this, like, where do I fit into this? Like, how do I belong sort of scenario. And that's kind of one of, like, what everyone goes through at 17 and 18. And so it's the most relatable, like, time point that anyone could go through. And I was like, huh, that's clever. You smart, Noelle. So
Find that male gaze. Aim for the young teen girls, yes.
Yes. Hopes, dreams, predictions, Sarah.
I don't know if I have any predictions. I definitely, you know, I'm just excited, you know, for more She-Ra, like whatever comes my way, I'm really excited about it. Of course, I would love to see more of Glimmer and Adora, their relationship in any way. And like, I want to see, you know, hopefully maybe not next season, but in the future, like Quattro and Adora, like coming to work through all of that really difficult stuff that they've been through and those like difficult things that they have between each other. Like, I would love to see them work through that at some point because I think it would be really great.
No, I agree. I think that if they don't work through it, then that would be like a huge loss for the show.
Yeah.
Like, I would be frustrated. Like, if we didn't have like Quattro and Adora like hashing out whatever their relationship is at some point.
The heart of the show.
It is, because if you really want to get Adora, you get her at the heart. Michelle, hopes, dreams, predictions for the second season.
I hope and predict that now that the princesses are all more or less together, they'll start expanding their adventures to take on more ambitious missions. Like, maybe they even leave their world. Maybe their world's okay. And
Aliens.
travel, and so then we get to see all the different princesses in different situations, and they play off each other more, and they all bond, and their personalities come out. Because some of them we only saw for like a hot second, like the couple at the end. We don't really know anything about them. We like know their powers. It's kind of it. I'd like to
And
learn
they're super
more
gay.
about them. And they're super
And
gay.
they're
So
super
two things, two important things. But I want to know more. So I hope that happens. I hope they have more adventures all as a group, and how that's going to change kind of the dynamic of the show now that it's not just, Adora, Glimmer, and Bo kind of doing their own thing as a 3 group. I definitely want to see Catra just explore more. I think Catra needs to get to a point where she's doing things not just to prove to Adora that she's also really powerful and can blaze her own trail, but like more for herself, and to have some kind of goal that doesn't involve Adora at all. I don't think she's there yet, and she probably won't be there by the end of next season, but that's like a long-term hope I have for her own well-being. I want to see more Scorpia. I want Scorpia to make more evil friends and bring them to the fold of the Horde. Just, yeah, I think Sam's right that, they're gonna have to find out that Entrapta wasn't killed at some point. And I honestly, like, when the, like, door closes on Entrapta, when they're trying to make the escape, I didn't read that as, oh, she's definitely dead. I'm like, oh, she's behind the door, she got captured, of course she's gonna go back. And everyone was so serious, I'm like, wait, did she really die? And I actually kind of believed that she was dead for a while. It's like, whoa, like, there were some stakes. It didn't really translate that she died, but I'll believe it. And then it's tied in like, oh, okay, yeah, like maybe they can't kill people yet.
I was gonna say, they took like the very like cartoon way to like show someone's dead. They're either already dead or someone has to tell you later that they're dead, like, and you don't get that at all. No, I felt the same way about that.
Yeah, I was the same. Like, I was like, no, she's not. Not for 1 second did I think she was dead. And then, like, when they're like, she's gone, like she's dead.
It's like,
and I was like,
what happened? When did that happen?
There was one thing I also wanted to add about what I hope. I hope we get more, like, Bo-centric episodes where we get to know him more, because, like, obviously, he's just so precious and so funny and just such a joy to watch. But I feel like he, in terms of like story, he didn't really stand out in any of the episodes in that sense.
Does Bo have a family? Like, what's going? Like, is he just an orphan?
Can we meet his family? I would love to meet his family.
Yes!
How did he get to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So our
like,
is that his thing? Who knows?
Okay, so my biggest thing, just to like play off everyone, is I just want more character development. Like, the show did character development so well that I want more of it, and I want it with more characters. Like, I want more Bo, I want more Glimmer, I want more Scorpia. I could do without Entrapta, but I guess we need everyone to know that she's alive.
No, we just hate Entrapta.
The summary of this podcast is that Bo is awesome, Glimmer is awesome, Catra is great, Adora is also wonderful. I feel bad. Like, I want more Adora development. I feel like she's suffering. So if you've ever watched Mysticons, I can't even think of the main character. Arcana, yes.
Oh no,
so,
that's how bad it is. We can't remember her name.
Yes. So Arcana, who was the main character of the show, had 0 character development throughout the vast, like, there's 40 episodes, and we maybe started to really explore her, like, at 35 episodes in. It was really, really bad, and so I feel bad because I love so many more characters more than I love Adora, and I'm like, she's the main character, like, she is She-Ra, and, like, I'm rooting for her main opponent, Catra. Like, what is happening here? So I want to love Adora more in the future. That's what I hope and dream.
I have a weird analogy here. So it's kind of like how in Mean Girls, Lindsay Lohan's character is kind of, you don't really care about her that much. You care more about Regina George or Janice Ian or something. People
Or
who
Glenn
like,
Coco.
yeah, exactly. People who have a little bit more personality that's more than just a fish out of water, learning the ropes, having a mission, etc. With shows, characters are always good to like place yourself into and sort of relate to in terms of having, I wouldn't say like a blank slate, but having somebody that, people can look at and say, hey, this character shares a lot of general good traits. I am a generally good person. I relate to that. That makes me connect to the show more.
Yeah, well put.
I want to talk a little bit in defense of Adora. Like, I kind of agree that she does sort of suffer a bit from, like, sort of being that main character that's not as, like, characterized in a sense. But, like, and I agree with what Sam said, is that, like, she is made to be really relatable. And I sort of tried to figure out, like, what is, like, Adora's story? And, like, and I think this came out a lot, as we talked about in episode 7. But, like, she was raised by the Horde and told, like, what to do, what to think, and she got all this praise growing up from Shadow Weaver, and so she's always thought of herself as being, like, she's good at being a Horde soldier, and then she's thrown into this new situation where she's got to be She-Ra, and a lot of people can relate to that about sort of, being raised to think a certain way, do a certain thing, and it's hard to sort of step out of that path. And over the season, we kind of see her go through that journey of exploring, like, what does it mean to follow your own path rather than the one that's laid out for you? And it's also okay to feel like when you're doing that, you have no idea what you're doing. And, like, that's sort of what she was feeling at the early episodes, and she starts to come into her own. And, there's gonna be people who try to pull you back as you go. But, I think she does sort of come into her own as the season goes and become more confident in herself. And, even though she isn't as sort of standout character-wise as some of the other characters, I do think that she does have at least a relatable path in the show.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I think so as well. And I think that was very well put, Sarah, because, you're right, like, she's made to be super relatable, and unfortunately, it's hard to make a character super relatable and have them, fleshed out at the same time, because as you flesh out the character, you start to sort of isolate people who are watching the show, and you sort of leave other people behind, and so, I understand more now. So I still want her to be a little bit more fleshed out, but I hope that as we do that, we don't, like, alienate anybody or anyone who, is a fan, enjoys the show or anything like that, because that's where where a show can tend to lose its viewers and its followers is because they make the main character unrelatable. And so when you no longer feel that connection to that character, like, you're no longer invested. Like, I can't tell you how many shows, like, I watched, like, the first 3 or 4 or 5 episodes and I couldn't relate to the character at all. Therefore they drove me crazy and I couldn't watch that show and I stopped watching and I just abandoned it. And so, I think you put it beautifully, Sarah, like, as defending Adora. So I applaud you for making me feel bad.
No.
There's one thing I'd want to add. I do, and again, I didn't know much about the original show. I thought She-Ra was just one person.
No.
But Adora is her own person. She-Ra is a persona that she puts on to use to fight. But I think that's a pretty interesting distinction because and I was a little worried that it would become this thing where Adora would have this little mini arc where she's like, I'm only useful when I'm She-Ra, and She-Ra makes me better. But, like, she doesn't really think about She-Ra as herself. She only ever gets frustrated about She-Ra when she's like, well, this is what She-Ra's for, and if I can't use her for this, what good is she at all? But she doesn't think of herself quite the same way. Like, she's able to divorce herself from that persona. And I like that that's a choice that the show made. Because I am more interested in Adora than I am in She-Ra right now. Because there's so much we just don't know about She-Ra. There's, like, a little mythos that's been built up, but they went to great pains to not really tell us a lot about it. Or to tell Adora much about what's going on yet. So that's kind of all up in the air. But Adora herself is just, like, way more interesting to me.
And also, like, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, what I really liked was, even, she's trying to sort of standing against what, Shadow Weaver wants her to do, but she's also kind of stands up against Light Hope, because, Light Hope's saying, like, you have to let go of, your personal connections to people to be She-Ra, and she doesn't want to do that, and I think that's also a really great testament to how committed she is to doing what, like, her heart wants rather than what other people tell her to do.
Another, something that I do remember about, like, the original series, too, is that, in the original series, Adora and She-Ra, like, it was like the secret identity thing. So, like, something bad would be happening, and Adora would be like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh,
she'd, like, run away. Not even, and I do remember this, and this is another reason why secret identities drive me crazy, and I'm so glad the show didn't do that. Because, like, it would be so blatantly obvious. She would literally be like, oh, I have to go check my hair. And they're like, okay. And then she'd, like, run away, and then, like, She-Ra would come, and they'd be like, hey, where's Adora? And She-Ra would be like, Adora is safe. I'm here to save everyone. like
oh my god.
Like, it was one of those, like, super frustrating things.
Man.
And I'm glad that, like, we're not doing that. And I think that it's nice that we're gonna be able to explore Adora as she accepts herself as She-Ra as well. Like, she's accepting herself and then also accepting herself as She-Ra, like, and becoming, like, comfortable in who she is when she's She-Ra. Because we do kind of get that a little bit in the beginning where she's just like, well, they only like me because I'm She-Ra. And even, like, in a later episode in the prom one, she's like, well, I'm only invited because because of She-Ra. So I think that's something that we may, even though we didn't explore it too much this season, I have a feeling we may, like, get more into it in the second season, especially if they do, like, wander out more so into the world, meet new princesses, all of this stuff. I think that'll be something that is going to be presented to us, and I couldn't imagine it not being like that, an internal struggle for Adora later on. At some point.
Yeah, that's true! Like, if she gets more and more comfortable with her She-Ra persona, how does she go back to just being Adora and having that kind of separated personhood? That's a really good point. That would be very interesting to see develop.
Yeah, no, I think that would be, like, they set that up very well, especially by not having the secret identity, because I think the secret identity bit, like, really messes with that, and then you don't get that, like, super, like, in-depth, like, character development. Of course, I love character development. I don't know if you guys notice this, but, like, because if I can't invest in characters, then, like, there's no point in me watching the show. But, like, I think that by not doing that, like, we have an opportunity to do that. And if they don't do that, I think I would be, like, severely disappointed. Like, if we don't ever address, like, Adora being She-Ra, like, and how she feels about that kind of situation. Because we kind of get it, like, her having that existential crisis. Like, I want her to have an existential crisis because we all need it at some point.
That's true.
But yeah, anything else you guys wanted to talk about before we wrap this up?
I just have a very closing thought about the Princess Prom episode. This is a small moment, but it's important. So when Bo finally tracks Glimmer down, he's like, why are you being so weird? What's going on? And she tells him the whole thing. She's like, well, like, I want you to have other friends. Like, I love you, but also it makes me really insecure because I'm afraid you won't want to hang out with me anymore because you have all these other cool options. And Bo doesn't really just let her off the hook with that. What he says is like, well, like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but it's not fair to take that out on me and punish me for that and how you feel. And I was just kind of like, whoa.
It was a very adult conversation.
Very good sense of his own boundaries, and I applaud him for that. I think that's a good life lesson for people to take away in general, and it's true. You can't just go around hurting people because you're hurt and not explain why and just, like, jerk them around. And good for you, Bo, for recognizing that right off the bat. This is a good lesson.
Very good lesson. I agreed. I did make note of that conversation. One, because like, of that point, but also because it's like the most honest conversation I think I've ever seen in a television show. Like, Glimmer says exactly what's wrong with her and why she's mad at Bo, and then Bo immediately says, like, that's not fair, like, to take it out on me. And then Glimmer's like, she almost has like that realization too, where she's like, you were right. I was not right of me. And I'm like, wow, like, look at how quickly this conflict was resolved. Like, I'm not even upset about it. Like, I'm just impressed more than anything. So, we've, we've been here for like an hour and plus. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So, we can, of course, you can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. If you want to continue this discussion with us, please join us on our Discord to text chat about this show and any other shows that we cover. We've mentioned a few of them: Ladybug, Mysticons, even though it's over, some other shows such as like Rick and Morty, so on and so forth. There's so many. Find us at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can also support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Beatrice, aka Beatrix Cavendish, and thanks as always to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and Hugh. Thanks you guys for listening. This has been super fun talking about this. I can't tell you if we're going to have any other She-Ra podcasts. Bring it up with us in the Discord. We're always there. We're always talking. But until next time, we'll see you then. Bye!
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.